Well, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. And I think my talk is going to be a little bit different because it's a little bit of a, I guess, of a masterclass on artificial intelligence with the understanding that we can't build smart cities in many cases without relying on artificial intelligence algorithms to analyze the large amounts of data that are generated in the cities that we live in. So I thought it could be valuable to you to have a deeper understanding of what artificial intelligence is and why it is so important, and also the implications for education. But before speaking about artificial intelligence, and this is very related to this workshop, it's important to contextualize the moment that we live in from the perspective of the challenges that we face and also the opportunities that technology brings. In terms of the challenges, my first message is that we won't be able to address many of the big challenges of the 21st century without the help of artificial intelligence, which won't be the solution, but it will certainly be part of the solution. Challenges like the aging of the population, particularly in Western Europe and Japan, Korea, where what used to be a pyramid of population is not a pyramid anymore. Many countries have birth rates below 2, so below replacement, and we have this really severe aging of the population, which is not just a demographic change, it's also an economic change, a social change, a healthcare change, and so forth. Of course, we live in a world that has limited resources. And if we continue consuming at the rate that we are consuming, we will need 2 planet Earths, which of course we don't have. So we need to figure out what to do in terms of our consumption patterns. And also the resources are not evenly allocated. In fact, in the 21st century, we are witnessing a polarization in the accumulation of wealth. For example, the 100 richest people in the world own more than the 4,000 poorest people in the world. And in part, this polarization of wealth is attributed to technological development. We live in a world with growing energy needs in many regions in the world. We've experienced very important increases in the energy costs, and unfortunately, a lot of the energy produced today is not renewable. And all of this is contributing, of course, to one of the biggest challenges that we face, which is climate change. We know that the average surface temperatures on the planet are increasing, and so are the sea levels and the frequency and intensity of natural disasters. And of course, we live in a world that is susceptible to global pandemics that can stop all activity globally, like we just experienced with the COVID-19 pandemic. So as I said, my first message is we need AI to address these challenges. And that's why I think it's so important that we all have a common understanding of what AI is and what AI can do. From a technological perspective, we live in a really exciting time. It's been already a few years that there are more than twice the number of mobile phones on the planet than people. The mobile phone is a technological device with the largest adoption in human history, and it modulates our experience to the point that we go to see a concert, like in this picture, and we don't really see the concert. We're just recording it or live streaming it to our friends using our phones. Or we go to meet and listen to the first and only female candidate to the US presidency, and we don't really see her. We are just taking selfies with her, with our mobile phones. But this is not just a phenomenon in developed countries. It's particularly an important phenomenon in developing economies. More people in the world have access to mobile phones than people have access to toilets or to drinking water. Like as this picture illustrates, this photo that shows these migrants lifting their phones full of hope to the sky, looking for reception to be able to communicate with their families. But beyond mobile phones, we live in a world where many of us, and undoubtedly your students, will coexist with autonomous cars driven by AI, with social robots, thanks to AI. We interact on a daily basis with tens of applications that are full of AI algorithms. All of us will be able to go to space without being professional astronauts, thanks to the advancements in civil space travel. We can speak to technology, we can talk to technology that doesn't have a keyboard, doesn't have a mouse, and still, listens to us and understands us thanks to AI algorithms. We won't be able to have smart cities without AI. We can print in 3D. We won't be able to make significant progress in science also without the help of AI. And as the Homo sapiens, we are increasingly augmenting ourselves with technology. Right now, it's technology that we wear with wearables and bracelets and watches, smartwatches, but increasingly it will be technology that we will have embedded in our bodies. We live in a world where from the 5 most populated countries in the world, 3 are digital countries that didn't exist 20 years ago. The most populated country is Facebook, and then WhatsApp, and then Instagram. Countries that are governed by the same president that hasn't been elected democratically. But not only us are connected and have technology, also day-to-day, our environment and day-to-day objects have technology embedded that enables any object to have connectivity and intelligence in what is called the Internet of Things. And only in 2020, we had over 12 billion connected devices in the world. This ubiquity of technology, and a lot of these connected devices are actually in the smart cities to measure pollution, to measure traffic, to measure temperature, to measure the garbage levels, to measure transit, and so forth. All this ubiquity of technology, it creates massive amounts of data that is usually referred to as big data, not just because of the size, but also because of the velocity, the variety with which it's generated. Data that is known as non-structured data, meaning that this is images and videos and audios and text and data coming from sensors that we can only make sense of with machine learning algorithms, with AI algorithms. So I always say, all this data is digital garbage if we are not able to make sense of it, and we need AI to be able to make sense of it. And of course, we not only live in a world where there aren't any borders digitally, but also we don't have a lot of borders physically. We have more mobility than ever in our history. And this mobility represents also a vulnerability, as we saw in the context of the SARS-CoV-2 or the COVID-19 pandemic, because infectious diseases spread really, really fast if we have such increased mobility. In sum, all these technological trends and advances, what have led is what is called the 4th industrial revolution. And this 4th industrial revolution is profoundly changing every aspect of society in a similar way as previous industrial revolutions did. The 4th industrial revolution brings an intimate relationship between the physical world, the digital world, and the biological world. And it's enabled by certain disciplines such as biotechnology, nanotechnology, genetic engineering, and of course, artificial intelligence, which is one of the main engines of the 4th industrial revolution. But what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is a discipline within computer science or engineering, which emerged formally in the 1950s as computers started also to be created. And it is the science or the engineering of building intelligent machines, taking as a reference human intelligence. So if we want to build artificial intelligence, we need to define and characterize what is human intelligence. And of course, we don't understand human intelligence completely, and it has a lot of unknowns, and we also have a lot of abilities. So in the same way, there are a lot of areas of knowledge within AI that try to replicate and emulate some of our human abilities. For example, we humans can perceive our environment, understand what we are perceiving, and react consequently. The equivalent in AI would be computer vision. If it is about seeing, using cameras to do video processing, image understanding, video understanding. It would be speech recognition and natural language processing is if it is about using language to communicate and so forth. But we have many other abilities. We can search for the best solution. We can reason and plan. We learn constantly and we adapt. In fact, if we don't adapt, we could extinguish ourselves as a species. And we have many, many intelligences. We have creativity, critical thinking, social intelligence, emotional intelligence, musical intelligence, logic, and so forth. So as I said, in the same way, within AI, there are different areas of knowledge that are trying to emulate some of these abilities. In terms of the level of competence, AI systems are usually divided into 3 levels. And this is important because a lot of the public conversation today is focusing on what is called general artificial intelligence or artificial general intelligence or AGI. So the first level, which is what we have today, is called narrow or weak AI. And these are AI systems that are really good doing one task, probably better than the best of humans, but they only know how to do this task. For example, the best chess player in the world is not a human being for a very long time. It's an AI algorithm, but this AI algorithm only knows how to play chess and actually doesn't really know what chess is. And if we change the rules, it will have problems probably quickly adapting to the new rules. All the AI systems today are narrow AI systems. The next level is what the field aspires to build, which is general or strong AI. And this would be an artificial intelligence that has the same level of competence and the same level of complexity as human intelligence, including very complex and difficult concepts such as consciousness and sentience. I think we are very far away from having general artificial intelligence, and we don't need general artificial intelligence for AI to be here today and to be profoundly changing society. And perhaps one question that we need to ask ourselves as a society is whether we want general artificial intelligence or not, whether we think that would actually improve society in any way or maybe not. And there are authors that say, well, why stop in general AI? Why stop in human intelligence? If the computation power continues growing exponentially, we could actually surpass human intelligence, achieving what is called superintelligence, which is a fairly controversial concept. The moment in time where we would theoretically surpass human intelligence computationally is called the singularity that you've probably heard of. By definition, we don't understand superintelligence in the same way as an ant doesn't understand our intelligence. And of course, my personal view is that if I think we are very far away to obtaining general artificial intelligence, even further, we are from getting superintelligence if we ever get one. Historically, since the 50s, there have been 2 schools of thought to achieve AI. And I think this is very important to know, to really understand why we are living the AI revolution today. The first school of thought is what is called the top-down or symbolic or classic, old-fashioned, so to say, AI. And this school of thought comes from this reasoning. We human beings, we know a lot of things. We have a lot of knowledge. So if we were able to program all the knowledge that we have in computers using symbols, and then we were to use the rules of logic to derive new knowledge from this base knowledge, we could potentially achieve artificial intelligence. The canonical example of this school are expert systems that you might have heard of, and they, in fact, were the first successful commercialization of AI in the 1980s and early 1990s. The second school is the school that I belong to and is the dominant school today, and is the school called bottom-up or connectionist or data-driven. And this school is inspired in a different observation about biological intelligence, which is the following one. Biologically intelligent systems learn from experience, learn from their interactions with their environment. They learn from data. So if we want to build artificial intelligence, we should invent algorithms that are able to learn from data. The canonical example of this approach would be neural networks that I'm sure you have heard of, because they are the dominant approach to AI today. However, neural networks are not something new. They exist since the 1940s and 50s. As this article from the New York Times illustrates, is from 1958, and it talks about a new device that learns by doing. What the article is talking about is the perceptron invented by Frank Rosenblatt, which is the simplest neural network that you can have. And back in the 50s, Rosenblatt said, this machine learns like humans. It makes mistakes at first, but as it gains experience, it becomes better. So as it has more and more data, it becomes better. And he even dared to predict that in the future, there would be perceptrons like this one that would recognize faces or that would translate from one language to another, which is exactly what we have today, using not exactly this very simple neural network, but a lot more complex neural networks, but sort of like inspired, in this very simple architecture from the 1950s. Within each of these schools, there are many areas of knowledge. For example, in the top-down classic school, we have game theory, logic, optimization, reasoning, knowledge representation, learning theory, and so forth. And in the bottom-up school, we have all the areas related to computational perception, so computer vision, audio processing, sensor data processing. We have machine learning. Within machine learning, we have deep learning, which is the dominant area today. Reinforcement learning is also a very important area today. And then we also have all the areas related to like social and emotional intelligence. And historically, these two schools of thought have been kind of opposed to each other, and there's been some rivalry between them. But in reality, any commercial system today has a very strong data-driven component, but it also has a top-down component of knowledge of the specific problem at hand to help for a better interpretation and understanding of the data. Many authors establish a parallelism between electricity in the second industrial revolution and AI in the fourth industrial revolution, because AI has certain properties that are somewhat similar to the properties of electricity. And what are these properties? So first of all, AI is a transversal discipline. It's a general purpose discipline. It can be applied to any field. I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation how we need AI to address and tackle a lot of the challenges that we face today. And these challenges are in many different disciplines, because AI has this ability to be susceptible to be applied in any field. And of course, in education is a huge area of application and concern, but of course also, as I said, in smart cities and sustainability. It's also invisible because it's software. It's just like, programs, computer programs. It's scalable and complex, but it also allows us to understand and manage complexity, and it's updatable. It's software. We can improve it and update it every day. And it has two very powerful properties. The first one is that it not only enables us to understand the past or interpret the present, but it enables us to predict the future. And the second property is that it not only allows us to make sense of data, but it generates data in what is called generative AI, which has popularized, I would say, AI in the past 8 months with all these systems that generate text and images and so forth. If AI exists since the 1950s, why is there the fourth industrial revolution now and not in the 1950s? It's mainly because of three reasons, three factors that have emerged in the past 15 years and that have enabled the exponential growth of data-driven machine learning methods, data-driven AI methods. And what are these factors? The first one, of course, is the availability of huge amounts of data, as explained early on. We always say every year or every 2 years, we generate more data than in the past 5,000 years of the existence of humanity. And as I said, this data, because it's non-structured, we can only make sense of it using AI algorithms. And of course, this data has huge monetary value. Only in Europe, in the European Commission estimates that it will surpass 774 billion in a couple of years. The second element is computing power, thanks to what is called the Moore's law. This is a law proposed by Moore that predicts that every year or year and a half, we can duplicate the computation power for the same cost. So it's a law of exponential growth in computing power. Here you can see the years on the horizontal axis, and on the vertical axis, you see the computing power in logarithmic scale per $1,000. And as you can see, even with the logarithmic scale, is a little bit exponential, so it's really an exponential growth in computing. This law is the law that explains why when we buy any technological device, a mobile phone or a tablet, the same device is a lot cheaper a year later or a year and a half later, or for the same price, we can buy a much more powerful device. AI systems have used all the computing power that there was at the time, from the expert systems of the 1980s to Deep Blue, the system that won in chess against Garry Kasparov in 1997, Watson, the system that won against some of the best Jeopardy players in the world in 2011, to the deep learning systems that are used today. In fact, to optimize the learning of these very complex neural networks, we have developed specific chips that are specific to train AI systems like FPGAs or ASICs. So you can actually optimize the computing power to be a lot more efficient in learning these very complex networks. So we have the data, we have the computation, and the third ingredient is the learning models. And the dominant learning models today are inspired in the perceptron of the 1950s on these very, very simple neural network, but we could say on steroids. So they are called deep neural networks or deep learning, and they're basically very complex networks that could have 100 layers, a few 100 billion parameters, and that trained with massive amounts of data, thanks to huge amounts of computation, they are able to make sense of that data, identify patterns, make predictions, or even generate new data. There is a fourth factor that is very exciting, which is the factor of the fact that there are many, many different tools and libraries today that enable almost anyone to be able to use AI in a much more user-friendly manner than when I was doing my PhD, for example, when I had to program all the mathematical equations to actually make the computer learn, anything. And today we have all these libraries that create this level of abstraction that make it very easy almost for anyone to be able to build their own networks and make the computers learn, whatever they want to learn. So to wrap up this part, AI is the discipline within computer science or engineering that has as an objective to create non-biological intelligent systems. There are two schools of thought in AI, and in the bottom-up school, we have machine learning, which is the dominant area within AI today, and within machine learning, we have deep learning, which is the subset of techniques that are based on using these really complex neural networks. And it is precisely these neural networks, these deep learning networks, that are the reason why we can recognize objects, in images, including faces. We can talk to technology and understands us. We can translate from one language to another, or we can generate also, content. To the point that since 2016, we have been achieving milestones that were science fiction not such a long time ago. For example, when AlphaGo won against Lee Sedol, one of the best Go players in the world in 2016, as I said, chess was a solved game. Since 1997, the best chess players in the world are not human, but Go was a more complex game and it had eluded AI until 2016. Or AI Librators in 2017, when it won against poker, playing poker against some of the best poker players in the world. Poker was thought to be a lot harder because it's a game of incomplete information. as opposed to chess and Go, where you know exactly the pieces of your opponent, you don't know which cards your opponent has. And also people can lie, right? So it was thought to be extremely hard for AI systems until in 2017, AI liberators won clearly against the humans, and that was a big achievement. Or AlphaZero in 2018, when he won against the best chess player in the world, which is another AI system, but having learned how to play chess by itself, by playing against itself millions of times. AlphaFold, more recently, a system that has been able to infer the 3D structure of proteins. And of course, since 2022, the popularization and democratization of the access of generative AI systems like ChatGPT, which is one of the most popular. And of course, I couldn't give a talk about AI without talking about ChatGPT. And I asked ChatGPT this morning to compose a poem about this workshop to see what it composed. And this is the poem that it created. And I think you are all in education, so maybe you can criticize this poem to see if it's any good or not. It says, in the realm where knowledge thrives, where AI and sustainability collide, gather here a passionate tribe, K-12 educators, let your spirits rise. AI, the marvel of our modern age, unveils possibilities with each turning page. Sustainability, a cause close to our hearts, preserving our planet where life imparts. In this workshop's enchanting embrace, ideas and visions intertwine with grace, unleashing creativity, sparking new dreams as we explore the future's vibrant themes. We delve into the mysteries of AI presents, unraveling its wonders, no longer hesitant, understanding its power, its great potential to solve challenges, make lives consequential. Oh, K-12 educators, you hold the key to unlock young minds, set them free, to explore the boundless possibilities ahead, to shape a world where innovation is widespread. So that's the poem that ChatGPT composed for this workshop. And then, of course, it's not only text. We can generate extremely photorealistic images using generative image systems like Stable Diffusion, DALL-E, or Midjourney, systems that are not exempt from biases that we need to address. And that's one of the research areas that we work on in ELIS Alicante. For example, of course, none of these images was created by a human being. And the images on the right depict what Midjourney generated when I asked it to create image of the most beautiful human being in the world. And as you see, there is a huge gender bias, there is a huge racial bias, there is many, many, many biases on what the algorithms think that is the most beautiful human being in the world. And I couldn't resist asking to create images of teachers. So that's what the AI algorithms think that teachers are. This is when I ask it to create images of kindergarten teachers. And I think you can see the stereotyping that is captured in these images. Having said this, the kindergarten teacher seems to be having more fun than the high school teachers. These are the high school teachers that he created, and they're all men. They all have glasses. They're all very serious. They all have a tie. I have no idea if this corresponds with reality, but I probably not. And then I went a little bit further and I said, well, can you generate images of the classroom of the future? And this is what it created. In the future, it seems that it's all men, the teachers, and somehow there's this augmented reality projections of the earth for some reason. And then I said, well, now generate images of robotic teachers. And these are the teachers that I created, which are not very appealing or friendly, at least in their appearance. So you can see that these systems are extremely powerful. They generate a huge amount of social challenges, but they are not exempt from limitations and biases that we need to address, especially taking into account that they're being used by hundreds of millions of people every day. But beyond all these milestones that were achieved, AI has basically penetrated our daily lives. And it's probably hard to identify what aspect of our life is not impacted by AI today, because AI algorithms decide which friends we have, which news we read, which information we find, which books we buy, which movies we watch, which music we listen to. As I mentioned, we talk to technology thanks to AI. AI algorithms decide where we go, from which place to which place. This is very important for smart cities. In many cases, take into account weather and traffic conditions, but also it could be taken into account the economic interests of the creators of these apps. It's been a long time that stock trading transactions and manufacturing processes are automated using AI algorithms. We cannot have, of course, autonomous cars without AI, and we won't be able to make progress in science without AI. But increasingly so, AI algorithms are going to decide which medical treatment is applied to us, which diagnosis is determined to us, which judicial sentence is given to us, or whether we are admitted or not in a certain university or job. And because of this presence of AI in very consequential areas of people's lives, AI has stopped or is not anymore an engineering or a technological discipline, and it has become a political issue. Like this graph illustrates, it shows the number of times AI in blue and machine learning in red were mentioned in the UK Parliament and the US Congress over the years. And we can see that it was only since 2016 that the politicians somehow realized, that there's this thing called AI. And it's probably not a surprise that over 50 countries in the world since 2016 have published their AI strategies, recognizing that AI is transforming every aspect of society. In Europe, we have the European strategy in AI since 2018. And since that date, at the European Commission level and in the European institutions, there has been work in parallel in two areas. On the one hand, on AI, and on the other hand, on data. Because as I said, today's algorithms, without data, they don't learn anything. And without data, there wouldn't be the progress that we have in AI today. So we need to understand the role of data in this AI revolution. And then, of course, understand the algorithms, the AI algorithms themselves. And as you probably might know, Europe has adopted a leadership position in the regulation of AI from several perspectives. In the fall of 2022, there were two regulations that were approved in Europe, the Digital Markets Act and the Digital Services Act. That the Digital Services Act aims to regulate social media platforms. And there are 20 large social media platforms that have been defined that will be subject of this regulation, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and so forth. Since April of 2021, the European institutions have been working on regulating AI. This started in April 2021 with a communication from the European Commission proposing a regulation of AI. And as you might have read in the media, a couple of weeks ago, the European Parliament passed the draft of the AI Act, which is the regulation of AI in Europe that will hopefully and probably become active by 2026. So it's still a long time, but at least it's being approved. From my perspective, if we want to ensure that this potential that AI has to help us address the big challenges of the 21st century, we need to consider these 5 dimensions: the technology dimension, the legal and regulatory dimension, the ethical dimension, the people, society, and education dimension, and the labor and economic dimension. I don't have a lot of time to go in depth into any of these dimensions, but I just wanted to quickly give some data about some of them, starting with the labor and economic one, because I think it's very relevant for you. From an economic perspective, we know that AI is a big generator of wealth, and we know that it will drive a big economic growth. And the estimation is that by 2028, there will be almost $1 trillion in the world in the AI market. Probably that wealth is not going to be homogeneously distributed in society, and that's one of the challenges that we have. We also know that with every other industrial revolution, there has been a big change in the job market. There are many jobs that existed when my grandmother was small that don't exist today. For example, the human alarm clock, the rat catcher, the lamp operator, the phone switch operators, the lectors in factories to entertain workers, and so forth. And there are a lot of jobs today that didn't exist 20 years ago. All the jobs related to smartphones because there were no smartphones, all the jobs related to cloud computing because there was no cloud computing, all the jobs related to social media platforms because there weren't any, or even one of the latest jobs, which is AI prompt engineer, which is the job of learning how to ask generative AI systems how to ask them things so they do whatever we want them to do, because it's not immediate, that they generate useful stuff. We know that there will be a lot of new jobs appearing. For example, AI trends anticipate that there will be around 100 million people in 2025 working in AI. If we look at the predictions from the World Economic Forum, the last report on the future of jobs from 2023 anticipates that roughly a quarter of the current jobs will be impacted by AI. And if we look at Europe, there's roughly 900,000 new jobs that are already there available, and we don't have enough people with the expertise to be able to fill them in. In terms of like which disciplines are which advances are job creators and job displacers, I marked in red the ones that are related to technology and to AI. And if we look at which professions are going to be the most impacted, so you can see them here, and maybe that's important, but this is quite interesting in terms of what are the key skills. So on the one hand, we have a lot of skills related to technology, and on the other hand, we have a lot of skills related to social and emotional intelligence, and those are anticipated to be the most important skills for the future. So I guess one question to ask ourselves, are we getting ready for this profound transformation? In the context of education, there are three areas where there is a direct impact. Of course, there is an impact on compulsory education, but there is also an impact on the education to professionals, including educators, and the education to citizens. So collectively, we can make informed decisions about this very strategic and life-changing, discipline as AI. Another important dimension is the societal dimension. There is a big movement in the world on using AI for social good. This is a movement that I belong to. It's a movement that started gaining a lot of strength and popularity in 2015 when the millennium objectives of the planet were coming to an end. And we had to come up with some new objectives for the world, which were the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And the Secretary General for United Nations at the time, he called for a data revolution. And he commissioned a report called the Data Revolution Report to a group of experts, including Professor Sandy Penland from MIT, my PhD thesis advisor, with the view of understanding how data and AI could help the world somehow achieve these objectives that were being drafted at the time. So for the first time in history, at the same time as the 17 Sustainable Development Goals were defined and proposed and signed by so many nations, there is in parallel a movement on how AI and data can help us better measure the goals, accelerate the achievement of the goals, measure the impact of the public policies deployed to actually contribute to the goals, or also maybe hinder the achievement of the goals because of the use of AI, because that could also be the case. So there are many areas where there is a lot of institutions and scientists working on how AI and data can help, have positive societal impact. Areas such as climate change, economic development, of course, smart cities, transportation systems, public health, including pandemics. And we did a lot of work on that during the pandemic here in Spain. Energy systems, population studies and censuses, and of course, agriculture. If you are interested on the topic, there is a lot of publications. Just a few months ago, I published this article for the European Commission on AI for social good, the way forward, that might be interesting to you. And since 2020, I am co-founder of this nonprofit called the Institute of Humanity-Centric AI. And one of the areas is actually seeing how we can use AI for social good. And to wrap up, I couldn't talk about how to make AI socially sustainable without at least listing to you the ethical and the challenges and the limitations that today's AI systems have, because it will only be when we address these limitations, that the impact of AI will be positive in society. Limitations such as the computational violation of privacy, being able to infer very personal attributes of people from non-personal data, such as the patterns of likes in a social network. Limitations such as the unauthorized use of private and copyrighted data to train these very large networks. This is something that is very prominent today in the context of generative AI and large language models and diffusion networks for generating images. Another big challenge is algorithmic discrimination and bias. I mentioned that we are increasingly relying on algorithms to support human decision-making or even make decisions for us. But the algorithms that are trained with data, in many cases, are replicating discrimination patterns that exist in society, or even exacerbating such patterns. So it's absolutely necessary that we have guarantees for non-discrimination when we're using algorithms. And this is one area that we are working on in ELIS Alicante. Another big challenge is algorithmic opacity, lack of transparency. We are talking about extremely complex networks. Just to give you an example, the underlying large language model is used by the free version of ChatGPT, GPT 3.5, is estimated to have 175 billion parameters. It's impossible for any human being to understand what this billion of parameters, are doing. So there is an entire area within AI called explainable AI to try to develop methods that explain what these very complex systems are doing. And this is one area that we also work on ELIS Alicante. A very big challenge is the subliminal manipulation of human behavior. I would say all of our behavior is being subliminally manipulated by AI algorithms on a daily basis that are trying to capture our attention and make us click, in certain links, or watch one more video, or listen to one more song. So this is something that we need to be aware of, and we need to somehow fight. A very big challenge with generative models is the lack of veracity, the synthetic generation of audios, videos, photos, text, leading to deep fakes and causing a lot of potentially damage in society and in the formation of public opinion and in the spread of conspiracy theories. A challenge that is not very much talked about is the excessive carbon footprint of these techniques. It takes more energy than some small countries to train these really massive networks. So there is an area called green AI or sustainable AI to try to really come up with methods that will be a lot more energy efficient and sustainable. We have a big lack of diversity in AI. In terms of the demographics of the experts in AI, there's only about 12% of female, for example, experts in AI in the world, but also the algorithms lack diversity. They tend to stereotype us in certain patterns, leading to what is called echo chambers and filter bubbles that in part is believed that they're leading to the polarization of society. We have a big situation of asymmetry where very few have a lot of power and have the ability to create these systems that are being used by hundreds of millions of people in the world. And these systems are not invulnerable. They're actually hackable. You can fool them. In fact, there is an area in AI called adversarial AI that has as an objective to fool AI systems. For example, if there is a system that recognizes faces and I don't want to be recognized by the system, I could wear special glasses with a certain pattern, or I could just put a certain sticker in some part of my face. To a human, it looks still like me and everyone will recognize me, but to the algorithm, I disappear or I become someone else. To remember all these limitations, I like using this acronym called phaetan. And I think as a society, we should demand that the AI algorithms that are in our everyday life and that we use constantly, they should satisfy these phaetan conditions. So the F is for fairness and non-discrimination. The A is for autonomy, preserving always the principle of autonomy. So we human beings should be free of our own decisions and actions. A is for accountability. There should be a clear attribution of responsibility in the use of these systems and the consequences of their use. And A is also for intelligence augmentation as opposed to intelligence replacement. I think we should strive for leveraging AI to augment us, to help us achieve more as human beings, not to replace us. The T is for trust and also transparency. The E is for the principle of beneficence, maximizing the diversity, the veracity, and the sustainability, but also is for the necessary investment in education. And the N is for the principle of non-maleficence, minimizing the negative impact with reliability, reproducibility, security, and of course, always preserving privacy. We are also working on all these ethical implications in the Ellis Alicante Foundation. And I just conclude with this quote by Stephen Hawking, who said, AI is likely to be the best or the worst that happened to humanity. And I invite you all to join our cause, which is making sure that it's the best that happened to us. Thank you.